mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here with the second episode of the Patreon exclusive video series, Mike's Musings. Now, if you've been paying attention at all, if you're a patron, I'm sure you have, you're probably noticing that I have a little bit of a different background here. So, I figured this was gonna be a special episode because I feel like this episode serves true, a lot more truer actually, to the purpose of this channel than the regular YouTube page does. The YouTube page is shifted into like this, I watch and break down every episode of a certain season of a show while it's happening, So that way, if you're watching that show and you're following along and you want some analysis, you want to watch with me, that's what the main channel kind of serves to do. But it was originally set up to kind of be almost like a recommendation service. Like, you don't know what to watch, come to my channel and you can figure out, okay, I have some interest in blank. Does he think that show's any good or not? And I still do that, and this channel can still serve that purpose. If you go there, anything I'm covering the whole season of, it's something that I like. So you can still use it for that purpose. But this specific video is all about the shit that I watch on my own time that I'm not covering on the channel. And what's gonna be cool about this video series, I think, for the patrons who subscribe to it, is gonna be the fact that it's gonna serve that purpose. Like, I'm gonna talk about like 8, 9, 10 different shows on this video. And by the way, I'm gonna put like the timestamp where I start talking about each show in the episode description. So that way, if you're somebody who looks at the list of shows and is like, I'm curious about 4 of those, you can look and see in the timestamp where I talk about that show. So that's something I'm gonna do, and we'll see how that works out, but I think that'll be pretty cool too. But it's gonna give you the opportunity to get my non-spoilery, brief opinion on like 8 different things. And I think that's a good video and a good product to put out there for you guys. So I think that's gonna be really beneficial. And because of that, I wanted to make sure that I gave proper time. So obviously I'm not gonna do a 20-25 minute video on each of 10 shows. We'd be here forever. But I'm gonna keep it brief, but I'm not gonna fly through it either. I wanna give these shows the proper respect, the proper time, and I also wanna give you, the viewer, the proper time. I wanna be like, yeah, here I made a Mike's Musings video that's 20 minutes long, and I talk about like 10 shows in it, so you only get like 2 minutes of talk per show. I don't really wanna kind of like shortchange you guys in that way either, so I figured since I'm gonna give it a little bit more time, I might as well come out here and be relaxed, right? So I'm in my garage, which is where, if you were watching, I think my Handmaid's Tale video, I might have went into too much detail about my, actually no, it wasn't the Handmaid's Tale, it was the Patreon video, the one for Tales from the Loop. I went a little bit too much detail about what I do in here as far as just like my vibe that I set up. But, I came in here and I grabbed a cigar. I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna smoke, I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna talk about these shows with you. Since I record my videos on my phone, the only thing I have in here with me right now is this notepad that I wrote down the shows that I want to talk about, like my talking points and stuff. I don't have notes in the traditional sense. I just wrote down like, this is the show that you want to talk about. And I'm just gonna kind of like, talk from the top of my head about each show as I read about it. And I'm gonna smoke, and we're just gonna sit here and have a conversation about these shows. And if you're interested in any specific one, like I said, you can check the timestamps. So I'm gonna get started here, and I'm gonna start with Untold, which is a series that's on Netflix. It's like a documentary series, and they cover these lesser known stories in sports. So the one that most connected with me personally was from maybe like a year ago or so, and they talked about Malice at the Palace, which was a situation that happened. If you're not a basketball fan, this was 2004. My Pistons and the Pacers were playing a game here in Detroit, and shit went left. Fans threw shit at Ron Artest, and he ran up in the stands, and it turned into like a players versus fans brawl, and it was this whole like black mark on the NBA, and it was terrible. So they did a episode of Untold that covered that. So that's the kind of show that Untold is. And I watched, they put out, I think it was 4 episodes for this new quote unquote season of the show. Let me move these remotes so I have a better place to put my my notepad that's not so shaky. But they did like, I want to say it was 4 episodes. I can't remember off the top of my head what the first one was. I think I watched it, but the main 2 that I watched that I want to talk about were one on Manti and one on Tim Donaghy. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on here because at the end of the day, these Untold things are like, they're interesting if you don't know the story already. If you know the story already, you're not going to get too much new information. And it's one of those things was like, okay, I want to learn a little bit more about this thing. I'll sit and watch this episode. Like, it's not something that's like, you know, a must-see documentary series or anything. Like, it's not 30 for 30 or you know, The Last Dance, or like I talked about last month, The Captain, that thing about the one about Derek Jeter. It's not like that. It's not that good. It's just like your standard, like, hey, this thing happened in sports, and here it is. In case you didn't know about it, this is what happened. If you knew about the stories, then it's far less interesting. You know, one thing about being in the garage, I keep looking at I still have my like side monitor. I record on my phone, and then I connect with my iPad so I can see myself, so I can see like how I'm framed, how everything looks, make sure it still looks good. And I look at my monitor every now and then, and I'm just like, well, it's my iPad, not a monitor. But I'm just looking like, man, like there's so much, like, not trash, but like there's a lot of shit that I have in here that is just for like, if like the chairs behind me, if guests come over. I've only lived in this house. I just moved in this house. Oh, I can't say just moved in. It's been almost 2 years. But those boxes back there, they're like empty moving boxes that we save, because why wouldn't you save them? But yeah, it's throwing me off. My Pistons posters that are right here from the championships. But yeah, it's not filthy in here like it looks in the background. But yeah, it's distracting to me. Anyway, the Manti Te'o one, I'm not going to spoil it, because if you want to watch it and learn about it, you can. But there's a situation with this player. He was a highly touted player out of college, and I believe his grandmother and girlfriend died within like a few days of each other. And then like he becomes kind of like this darling, you know, like, oh my God, because he like played like the next day or something like that. And he became like this darling of the media, like, oh man, what a brave soul this guy is. He did all this. And it turned out that the girlfriend wasn't even real. And I will leave it at that, and if you decide to watch it, you can find out all the details, how this came about. But I lived through that story. Like, I remember it. So like, it was just kind of like, for me, it was kind of like revisiting a time rather than learning about some new interesting story. And then the other one is about Tim Donaghy, which was, he was a referee in the NBA. And this is another situation where I lived through the story. I remembered it vividly. There was a scandal in the NBA about referees who are betting on games, which of course is going to make you then naturally progress to the next thought of, are they then fixing the games? And I remembered in 2002, and this is from my memory. This is not from the documentary, though it does pop up in the documentary, but it only popped up as a means of proving me right. In 2002, I was watching the NBA Western Conference Finals. It was the Lakers and the Kings, and Sacramento Kings were, in my opinion, the better team. It looked like they were on their way to not just going to the NBA Finals, but probably winning. And they were up 3-2 in this series. And then in Game 6, which was in Sacramento, so Sacramento had every reason to win Game 6 at home and go to the finals, there was some sort of ridiculous like disparity in the foul calls. And watching it, like, I've never been one of those people that subscribes to conspiracy theories. So like, anytime we say, you know, if somebody loses, a team you like losing, you're like, it's fixed, it's fixed. I'm like, no, it's not fucking fixed. Like, we don't need to do all that shit. But I watched that game and I pointed at the TV like, this shit was fixed. And the disparity was ridiculous. I can't remember what span of time the fouls were measured over, but it was something like, you know, in the second half, the Lakers had 50 free throws and the Kings had 0. Like, it was something ridiculous like that. It might have been the fourth quarter, the second half, the whole game, whatever. But there was some wild discrepancy, huge difference in the foul calls. And watching the game, which I was, it was very clear to me that, like, there was something going on. So when the Tim Donaghy news broke, I thought, man, I knew it. I was like, that one time, that Lakers-Kings game, I know it was fucking there. And somebody was telling me about this episode coming out, which I already knew about it because it was already on my radar. But I told that person, I'm like, I bet you they mentioned The 2002 Western Conference Finals Game 6. I bet you they mentioned that. Sure enough, I go to watch it, and I took a screen. When it came up, I paused it because they put like a thing on the screen that said 2002 Western. I paused it and sent the screenshot to him like, I told you. It was that validation. I spent so much time talking, my cigar went out. Yeah, I gotta relight it. But like I said, that series is something where it's like, if you're interested in those stories, like a story about a football player that has a dead girlfriend and then it turns out she's not real. If you're interested in that story, or if you're interested in the story about the gambling in the NBA, then you can learn about it. It's not going to be wildly interesting. The episodes are maybe like 45 minutes long, something in that range. So it's not a huge watch. There was another one that was about a bicyclist, I think. And then there was one more that I did watch, but I didn't find it to be that interesting. So I think there was 4. You gotta love that long delay, right? Everybody loves a nice long silence. All right, so let's see. What's the next thing I want to move on to here? Harley Quinn. So I don't know if any of you guys have watched Harley Quinn. The most recent season, the one that just ended, was season 3. It's an animated show. It comes on HBO Max. It's 10, I believe, episodes in a season. They run 25 to 30 minutes, your typical animated sitcom. What I like about this show, though, is that it is genuinely funny, and they do their own versions of these DC characters. So really, there's not much of a premise. Obviously, the show is about Harley Quinn, the Joker's girlfriend. The Joker is in the show. It's mainly about bad guys, but Batman is technically in the show. He doesn't appear all the time, but Batman's in the show. And Harley has her own kind of like crew, her group of other criminals that she works with. She has, let's see, Poison Ivy, Clayface, King Shark, Dr. Psycho. What's the plant's name? Fuck, I can't remember the plant's name. Fred? I don't know why. I can't remember the fucking plant's name. There's a plant, and it's like a dumb show in the sense of like, you're not gonna sit here and think that you're about to get like, you know, Ted Lasso, like, as in your form of comedy. Like, it's vulgar, it's graphic as far as like violence goes, even as far as like sex stuff goes. There's like a orgy scene in season 3 that is not on par with the orgy scene from The Boys, but not as far in graphicness as you would think between something that's live action and very clearly TVMA to something that's animated, because they're not just be putting animated titties on there. Like, it's not crazy like that, but like, it's fairly graphic for something where it's animated and they're not technically showing anything. But that's kind of what the show is about. But they take, like, Clayface, for instance, is now like a classically trained actor, so he has like this over the top foreign kind of accent, like a classically trained Shakespearean actor kind of voice, and that's his shtick. Like, is like he's like this actor. So when he's changing forms, like Clayface can change shapes, like he's a shapeshifter. Like he shapeshifts into like Billy Bob Thornton in this season, and there's a whole arc where he's playing Billy Bob Thornton in a James Gunn movie, and it's actually James Gunn voicing James Gunn, and that's his thing. King Shark is, I can't even describe, King Shark's like my favorite character on there, and I can't even really describe what he's like, but King Shark's fucking hilarious. Just trust me when I say that. Poison Ivy's Poison Ivy. She serves as like best friend / love interest, depending on what season you're watching, of Harley. They have a Bane character that is outstanding on there. Joker is incredible, and it's just really fucking funny, man. Like, I really recommend it. This third season, though, the one that just wrapped, the third season is still good. It's not as good, I don't think, as the first 2, but it's still really, really strong. I think particularly the second half of it is pretty strong, and it's always funny, man. And that show, it's one where every week I go into it, I'm just kind of like, all right, let me check out Harley Quinn, see what's going on. And then I watch the episode and have a great time. And I'm like, why do I always like shortchange this show? Like, I treat it like it's not as entertaining as it is. You know, a good example is like, well, maybe I should just transition to that now. I don't have to go in order. A good example, and the next show that I want to talk about is She-Hulk, because She-Hulk's kind of similar in that, well, it's not similar, but this is going to tie into my point about how I treat Harley Quinn. When I started watching She-Hulk, I watched the first episode. I'm like, it's fine, whatever. The first episode really revolved around Jennifer. Jennifer Walters is She-Hulk when she's a human, and she obviously changes into She-Hulk. And the first episode revolves around her and her cousin Bruce, who we all know, and how she ends up getting the powers that make her into a Hulk, and Bruce kind of like training her in how to be a Hulk. That was like the whole first episode. I'm like, okay, I don't really know about this. I don't know if I need this. It wasn't that funny to me. But then after that, it became this show where it knew what it was and that it kind of made fun of itself. It told an interesting, it doesn't have like a story, a season-long thread that you follow. It just is like an entertaining story for her each week, her being Jennifer, because she gets hired to be the head of a law division that's strictly for superheroes. So superheroes come to her with legal cases and she handles the cases. I both love and hate how when I take the puff of the cigar, everybody just has to sit here and be quiet for like 3 seconds. And like those of you watching, you just got to sit there and be like, like I'm probably not going to do this every time, but it's kind of funny to me right now. But it becomes this show where every week she's handling a different case for a different superhero. Although there is maybe like a 2 or 3 long episode thread where they bring in Tim Roth to play Apocalypse again, who you remember from the Ed Norton-led Incredible Hulk, which was before Mark Ruffalo took over the role. They bring in Tim Roth, and he is outstanding. Like, man, the Tim Roth portion was so good. He was so good, and it's nice to see Tim Roth again and just be reminded of just how great he is. But like I said, every week for the most part, it's a different story that's being told, and they do a great job of like making fun of themselves. They have Jennifer break the fourth wall, which by and large I don't like when shows do that, but they do it to great effect because every time they've done it, she said what I was thinking at the time. So it's not like they're breaking the fourth wall and giving you additional information or like it's used in some sort of important way. It's like this show takes breaking the fourth wall as an opportunity to poke fun at itself. Like it'll be like, oh, I bet you thought we were going to do this, but now we're doing something different. I'm like, that is what I was thinking. And I love how they utilize that. And then they have like, they've been bringing in characters that we know consistently. Like I said, they brought in Tim Roth. He was around for 2 or 3 episodes. They brought in Wong from the Doctor Strange movies. He was around for, I think he pops up twice, Wong does. And then, of course, the rumors have already been confirmed that at some point Matt Murdock is going to show up. Charlie Cox is Daredevil. So they're bringing in guests, which is always cool. But then they do things like introduce new characters that are really fucking cool as well. Like whichever episode it was. So today's episode, which I'm going to watch after I record this video, is episode 8, I believe. So 5, maybe. They bring in this Madison character. And this Madison character is only in that episode, but is fucking hilarious. Like, I loved this character. And I'm like, why is this... how is this show doing great stuff with so little? Like, and when I say so little, I mean, it's not doing any fancy shit. Like, it's just kind of like, hey, here's Wong. And you think, like, oh, they're just using that to pull in viewers so the show sucks. So they're like, oh, Wong's going to be here. Let's pull him in. And they'll do something like, I bet you think Wong's here because the show sucks. They don't do that. But, like, that's the kind of way this show kind of pokes fun at itself. And I love how when I say do so little, it's like, hey, here's a guy from the movies that you're going to recognize. That's not a huge thing to do for them within the context of this whole universe. But it's like they do it to such great effect. And they maximize that They maximize these random guest characters they're introducing. They maximize, like I said, breaking the fourth wall. The surrounding characters, the supporting characters are all really good and entertaining. So like, it's a show that it does the little bit of things that it requires really, really well. And it makes for a really entertaining half hour of television. Like it's, and entertaining is a great compliment to pay, because even when, you know, I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, this is the best show ever, or it's the best show in the MCU, or the best show on Disney, but like, I don't need to get hyperbolic with my description when I say that, to say that you're gonna sit down for half an hour and get 30 minutes of really good entertainment, that's kind of like close to among the highest praise that I can give a show. Because there will be times that I can sit in front of you and talk about all the ways in which a show or an episode of a show is incredible. But at the end of the day, you might be the kind of person who might sit there and be like, I acknowledge every single thing he said was accurate about why that episode was great, but it was fucking boring and it wasn't entertaining, or whatever the case may be. So a show can be great and not entertaining, but I would defy anyone who says they watch this show and they're not entertained. Like, and I think unless you're coming in with that mindset of I refuse to be entertained, then I think you'd probably be entertained with this show. Let's see. Next, I'm going to talk about Rick and Morty briefly. I don't know if any of you guys are Rick and Morty fans. Rick and Morty came back for its 6th season about 5 or 6 weeks ago. After season 5 or 4, it was renewed for enough episodes to get you to the end of a 10th season. Something like that. It was like a 50 or 60 episode order at one point. So we know we're getting Rick and Morty for at least 10 seasons. Season 6 came back. It hasn't been terribly long since season 5 either, which is cool because there was like a long gap in between the first 4. But it's back, and Rick and Morty has been kind of plagued with like this kind of tear in the fandom almost, where it's like you have fans who are really, really interested in the continuity and these ideas or these characters or these concepts that the show introduces but may not really come back to it. And it's like, well, that's super interesting. Why aren't they spending more time on that? I want to know more about that. You have those people, and then you have the people who love it just for its like trippiness, right? Like not every episode, but there's portions of this show where it just seems like the episode is an individual fucking acid trip almost. And it's not that crazy, but there will be like these self-contained adventures that are just completely ridiculous with monsters and time travel and space travel and all kinds of weird shit that it's like, what sort of brain came up with this? There's people who love that aspect of Rick and Morty as well. I'm more into give me the jokes and give me kind of like a consistent sort of theme or story or something. When they do like standalone, wild, ridiculous episodes, like those are hit or miss. Like they might be good, they might not be. But it seems like whenever they're focused, the show is better to me. And I think this season has been particularly strong. Like this season has been one of the best so far. And it's because it's had kind of like a through line throughout these first 6 episodes that's really tied everything together. And even when they deviate from that and they give you some sort of, here's Rick and Morty on an adventure, or here's Rick and different members of his family on an adventure, here's just different members of the family on an adventure. It's always been, this season, it's been real entertaining, consistently, really funny. The episode I watched last night, which was I think it was episode 6, might have been 5, but it's whatever the most recent episode is, the one that aired this past Sunday, was hilarious. And it didn't have anything, it wasn't like a complex story, because something like a lot of things that when I think the show is at its worst is when it tries to do too much, where it's like burying a story within a story within a story within a story, and it's like it just keeps going and escalating, and it starts from a regular normal place that's interesting, but by the time you get to the end of the episode, it's mutated into something so far off and ridiculous and wild that's so detached from where we started that it kind of feels jumbled by the time you get to the end of an episode. I think that's when the show is at its worst. But when it's focused on a specific story or an idea, and then it just gives you the Rick and Morty style of fun and adventure and humor, that it does best, I think that's when the show is at its best. And this last episode was like that. It took us a very simple premise. Like the premise, I'll just tell you off top, the premise was the father of the family, Jerry, they all go to Panda Express. Excuse me. They all go to Panda Express, and Jerry, well, they all open the fortune cookies and get like dumbass fortunes. But Jerry opens his fortune cookie, and it says that he's gonna have sex with his mother. And already I'm like, what the fuck? Like, even as a seasoned Rick and Morty viewer, I'm like, what the fuck? Where is this going? And you can feel comfort in knowing that wherever the show is gonna take you from that point, it's gonna be good. Like I like live, I can't say live tweeting, but like live Facebook posting while I'm watching this. And the first thing I put was, I don't know how we're gonna get there, but however we get to Jerry fucking his mother, and I didn't say Jerry fucking his mother because I didn't want to give away what it was, but however we get to Jerry fucking his mother, I have full faith that however they're gonna get us there is gonna be great. And it was. And it was one of the funnier, it was probably the funniest episodes of the season. And I just think Rick and Morty, if you're somebody who's a fan of Rick and Morty already, I think you're gonna love season 6 if you haven't already started it. It's been great, really great. They did a great kind of like horror episode almost last week. That was really good. Yeah, it's been solid. And if you're unfamiliar with Rick and Morty as a whole, that's kind of what it is, right? It's Rick is the grandfather of this family. He comes out of some different universe. There's all sorts of different dimensions. Rick's the most powerful man in the galaxy because he's the smartest, and he has the ability to essentially do whatever he wants, make whatever invention he wants, portal guns, multiple timelines, multiple universes. He can do whatever he wants. So he runs the galaxy, and he kind of doesn't give a shit about anything because of that. Because of how he runs the galaxy, he knows that nothing is really permanent. Like if his family dies, he can just go to a different timeline where his family doesn't die and then just live with that family. So like he looks at life almost kind of like frivolously. And he comes back to his family. I'm gonna spare you an explanation of how Rick enters his daughter and her family's life. But he enters the family's life, he makes a connection with Morty, and him and Morty just go on fucking weird adventures every week. And that's pretty much it. And like I said, you got portal guns, multiple universes, timelines, monsters, aliens, weird characters that somebody like Bird Person. Yes, not Birdman, Bird Person. And he was Bird Person before people were woke about like saying, this is my person and all this stuff. Before that, he was Bird Person. And people like characters like that, weird characters, like how do you come up with this sober? Like there's no way you imagine Bird Person sober. But you know, that's what the show is. I love Rick and Morty. I think this season is one of the strongest ones that they've had so far. So if you're a Rick and Morty fan and you haven't started season 6, stop, fucking watch it right now. And if you're not a fan of Rick and Morty, I hope I've given you enough information for you to make a decision on whether or not it's something you're interested in. Let's see. Oh, it went out again, talking too much. You know, I think my biggest takeaway from this whole experience is going to be don't smoke cigars while I'm doing this, because one of the two entities is going to get the short end of the stick, either you guys or the cigar. I prefer it to be the cigar. So, the next thing I want to talk about is Dopesick. A lot of you guys in the comments on various other videos have asked me, like, did you watch Dopesick? Have you watched Dopesick? You should watch Dopesick. I finally got around to watching Dopesick. And I gotta say, there was a shit ton of like limited series released this year that were really good. And keep eating little bits of tobacco in my mouth. The Emmys nominated a group of 5 of them, 5 or 6. I could run off 5 that were better than all 5 or 6 that were nominated for Emmys. But if we're looking at just the group that was nominated for Emmys, Dopesick is easily the best of all of them. Like, I think I wrote down, because I wanted to talk about I want to talk about the Emmys, I might have written down what it was up against. Oh yeah, I did. So The White Lotus won. Dopesick, The Dropout, Inventing Anna, and Pam and Tommy. I've seen all of those except Inventing Anna. My wife watched Inventing Anna, and she wasn't that impressed. But, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, Dopesick. Dopesick's easily the best of those, and it's because Dopesick, I think, takes its material the most seriously. And I mean, we're talking about, if you don't know, Dopesick is about the whole situation with Purdue Pharma and OxyContin and how they made it so that everybody was fucking on OxyContin, and then there was a whole Oxy epidemic, and everybody's hooked on Oxy, and it became a whole thing, and then Purdue got lawsuits thrown at them, all that kind of shit. I'm sure you've heard about it in the news. You couldn't miss it. Given the subject matter, you want to treat that seriously. You want to take it seriously. But, like, all the rest of these, like, they just gave me a vibe like they just wanted to tell the story, like they just wanted to capitalize on the story, really. And it was like, hey, let's just fucking tell this shit and be done. Like, it didn't feel like something they really cared about. Like, Pam and Tommy, that shit was whack. Like, I don't even know how that got nominated. Both of them were good. The Lily James as Pamela Anderson and Sebastian Stan as Tommy Lee. They were both great. Seth Rogen was in that, and he was great too. But it's just like, it just wasn't that good. And it didn't feel like, that's not even, to me, a story that really even garners a 7 or 8 episode limited series. Like, okay, I got a sex tape stolen. Like, that's an hour and a half, bro. Like, hour and a half documentary, man. Like, we did not need all that shit. The Dropout, again, I don't want to say like it didn't take it seriously, but I felt like Amanda Seyfried's portrayal of oh gosh, why am I blanking on her name? What's her name? Elizabeth Holmes. Her take on Elizabeth Holmes almost felt not like a caricature, but like it felt a little bit like, I don't know, caricature might be a little bit accurate, like an exaggerated version of who she is. And I could be wrong, but that's what it felt like. Dopesick, on the other hand, took the very serious issue of what Purdue Pharma was doing to people in the interest of profit and treated it like with the seriousness of the severity of their crimes against humanity. And Michael Keaton in this, incredible. He won, I believe, he did win the Emmy for best actor in a limited series, and he deserved it. He was incredible. Michael Keaton's always been incredible, though. I'm glad he's getting his flowers now, because he absolutely deserves them. Michael Stolberg is in this. He's great in every fucking thing. Rosario Dawson is good in this. Peter Sarsgaard is good in this. The guy that plays Peter Sarsgaard's partner was my shit. I don't know this actor, but he was fucking awesome. Like, I really enjoyed Dopesick. Like, and I still would say that the 4 or 5 limited series that I felt should have been nominated are all 4 still better than Dopesick. But Dopesick is in that group. Like, I'd put Dopesick in that group. Like, I'd elevate it above everything else that was in that category. White Lotus, Dropout, Inventing Anna, which I didn't see, but Pam and Tommy. Like, I elevated above those things. So, like I said, Dopesick, it was like 8 episodes. Oh, fuck, I forgot the girl that played, oh, fuck, I hate that I never remember her name, and now I can't look it up because I'm recording on my phone. But she plays the main young girl in the show. She was also great in, she was in Justified. She was great on that. She was great in Unbelievable. Caitlin Dever, yes. So she was incredible as always. So yeah, Dopesick was great. I really think you guys should watch that one. That's one that, what have I listed so far? So Untold, Harley Quinn, Rick and Morty, She-Hulk. Those are all good times. It's Untold. Like I said, Untold is like, if you're interested in those stories, watch it. But it's not like, as far as documentaries go, it's not like up there. It's fine. But Harley Quinn, if you're into like raunchy animated comedies, that's a very high recommendation for me. Rick and Morty, also a very high recommendation. Dopesick, though, and She-Hulk, also a very high recommendation. But Dopesick is probably going to be the only one that's going to make it into my best of 2022 video, which I am preparing for the best of 2022 video all the time. Like, it is, like, January 1st, 2023, I will be able to record this video. Like, it's not like I'm going to need, like, weeks of research and, like, okay, what did I like? I've been preparing for it since January 1st, 2022. I can drop that video on the 1st. But Dopesick it's not going to be in the top 10, but it's going to be in the honorable mentions, which the honorable mentions at this point is probably going to be like 20 fucking shows. But Dopesick was good enough to make it in there. Let's see. Let's go back to comedy, and I'm going to talk about Abbott Elementary. I haven't watched, so right now it's Thursday, October 6th. Whatever the case may be, a new episode of Abbott Elementary aired last night. I haven't watched it yet. So I've only watched, there's been 3 released so far in season 2. I've only seen the first 2. The first 2 are great. And what's interesting here is that I am not, or have not been up to this point, a huge fan of Abbott Elementary. It's fine. It's funny at times. But to me, it's just another, your standard mockumentary sitcom. The Office, Parks and Rec, this Abbott Elementary, you kind of seen one, you seen them all, except for it's just a matter of, do I like this cast of characters more? Do these people make me laugh more than the others? And I would put Abbott Elementary in the same realm as The Office and Parks and Rec, in the same realm being that it's getting to be on par. Like it's too early to really put it there, to say I put it with those. That's why I say in the realm, because I can't put a show that's had one 13-episode season air so far up against something else, something that had 7, 8, 9 seasons. Like, I can't say it's the same as those. If Abbott Elementary gets to season 7, then we can have that conversation. But, you know, it's your standard mockumentary show, which is fine for, like, you know, you just want to sit and watch a funny half-hour comedy. Cool. But to me, it wasn't anything special. And I think what made people latch onto it so much was the fact that it was made by a black woman. It has several black people in the cast, and it's something different. Now it's in a school instead of in an office or at a Parks and Rec place, whatever. And I just didn't feel as if it did anything differently or better than shows like The Office for me to be like, oh, Abbott Elementary. It's just like all the rest of them, just in a school with different people. And I stand by that assessment, but I will say season 2 so far has done a lot better of a job of adding in some heart. And it's not to say that it lacked it in season 1, but I feel like they've done it better so far in season 2, and I feel like they've turned up the funny in season 2. So after, like, it's only 2 episodes in, but these first 2 episodes look to be signaling for me, a pretty sharp improvement in quality for Abbott Elementary. And again, that's what I'm saying. It's not coming from a bad place where it's like, oh, it was shitty and now it's going to be good. It was fine. It was good. But it feels like it's trending toward great. And these first 2 episodes were really solid, really interesting, really funny, and really heartfelt. They had some really good moments. So I feel like everybody already kind of watches Abbott Elementary, but if you don't, that's what it is. And yeah, season 2's been solid. Let's see. So I have Andor, Sandman, and Reservation Dogs and the Emmys to talk about. And I'm already 38 minutes in, so we'll probably end up at about an hour. But that's less time than I expected, honestly. I'm like, this shit gonna be like an hour and a half. Let's see, where are we gonna go next? Let's talk about Sandman. I want to talk about Sandman because, one, I didn't really have too much interest in watching it when I first heard about it, and then I developed an interest, but not enough to actually start it. And by the time I did get around to starting it, I wasn't that into it at first. It's very like hardcore fantasy, and if you're not a big fan of the fantasy genre, then it's not gonna work for you. But I think I'll kind of like start by kind of like giving you the premise of it, since I haven't really talked about it at all, and it's a new show, whereas a lot of other stuff, like Harley Quinn is on its 3rd season, Rick and Morty is on its 6th, Abbott's on its 2nd. You know, like you've seen some of this stuff, and I feel like people are watching She-Hulk. A bunch of people already saw Dopesick, Sandman, Reservation Dogs, Andor. I think it's an appropriate final 3 because I feel like those 3 shows aren't making the rounds as much as the others. But Sandman is it's difficult to even explain. It's kind of like, so it stars a character called, well, he's called Morpheus, but he's also called Dream of the Endless. And he rules the world of dreams, but not just dreams like when you go to sleep, but even like subconscious thought. And in the first episode, he gets captured and he's held in captivity for a extended amount of time. And during that time, I think they say it was like millions of people who were asleep at the time he was captured stayed asleep for the entirety of the time that he was captured. And it was a ludicrous amount of time. We're not talking like a week. So that's kind of like how you start the premise of the show. And the guy that captured him stole items from him. After he gets freed, the show almost kind of breaks into sections. The next, so that's the first episode. The next, I want to say 2 episodes, 2.5. The next 3 episodes, he spends retrieving the things that were stolen from him in the first episode. And he goes into all these different worlds. It's very, not even remotely, like if you're going into it looking for things to be explained to you and to make sense and to be logistical, wrong show. This is one, don't go in looking to poke holes in it, because there will be plenty to poke. You'll get arthritis in your wrist from poking holes in this show. It's that easy. But it's not like that because it's bad. It's like that because in this world of fantasy, the explanations that one would require aren't even necessary in these worlds. It's one of those things where it's like you gotta accept that shit that don't make sense can happen here. Once you get to that point, you can move through the show a lot easier. And it took me a few episodes to kind of get to that point where I'm just like, okay, if I keep wondering or looking for explanations for these things, I'm going to end up having a rough time. So let me just kind of like sit back and see what the show is trying to do. And when I did that, it became a lot more enjoyable. Those first 3 episodes, well, like I said, it was actually, the first episode was the one where he was captured. And the next 3, so 2 through 4, would have been when he was trying to retrieve his items. And then 5 and 6 do something a little bit different. And then 7, 8, 9, and 10 do a different kind of story. They all involve Morpheus / Dream of the Endless, and they tie these stories together so you don't feel like you're starting something new. You feel like you're kind of like more like transitioning into something new. And the 3 episodes where he's retrieving his things kind of serve to give you a feel of the world that you're living in, the world that you're dealing with. Episode 4 was really strong. He goes to retrieve his last item from hell, and the way it plays out was just like it's just interesting because you've never seen anything like this. And I always give added points to a show or a movie that is unlike anything I've ever seen. I give a lot of points for creativity because we live in a world where everything is being rehashed. It's like a fucking remake, or it's a sequel, or it's a fucking based off some already really well-known or well-tread property. And it's like nothing feels creative or new anymore. So when I get something that's creative or new that doesn't feel like something I've seen before, I give it extra points. And this show is like that. You know, it's like nothing you've ever seen. And those 3 episodes give you that time to kind of get acclimated to that world. And episode 4, he goes to hell, like I said, and he's trying to retrieve his final item. Gwendolyn Christie, who was Brienne on Game of Thrones, plays Lucifer. And it's just a really interesting episode, like just in how different and unusual it is. And I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to spoil it for you should you choose to watch it. But episode 4 was when I started to get kind of bought in on the show. You know, episode 1, I'm like, okay, this is fine. 2 and 3, I was still, okay, this is fine. But I'm still poking holes in it at that point. After episode 4, I'm like, okay, I think I could kind of see what I'm dealing with now, so I'm going to stop being so hypercritical. Episodes 5 and 6 were so fucking good. They're like it's weird because like the show never reaches the peaks of 5 and 6 at any point ever after that either. Like, as a matter of fact, I would say it falls off quite a bit after episode 6. Like, the final storyline that they do for the last 4 episodes was only kind of interesting to me. And make no mistake, it's not bad. It's just, you have, like, this kind of, like, steady kind of movement for, like, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you go way up for 5 and 6. And once you get up there, you want to stay there. And then you get down to 7, it's like, now we're back down. And we still might be back down to here, where we were at with 1 through 4, but it feels, I don't say worse, because there's too much of a negative connotation to that, but it feels like a letdown to leave the heights that you hit on episodes 5 and 6. 5 and 6 were really fucking good episodes, man. And that's what pushed me to finish watching the show and to feel like I wanted to talk about it on here, because I felt like the show was so interesting in that in the different ways in which it chose to present certain themes and ideas. It was really creative. Like I said, episodes 5 and 6 were fucking great. Like, I feel like, too, you could watch episodes 5 and 6 and gain something from them without having seen the preceding 4. But I would say you would need to watch those 4 just so you can have a firmer grasp on the world that you're operating in. So that way you're not as shell-shocked by what you experience in 5 and 6. But yeah, man, 5 and 6 were great. Overall, I would say the show is good. It's not something that I'm going to say, hey, everybody needs to go watch this. Because like I said, the other episodes that weren't 4, 5, and 6, like 4 was really, really good. 5 and 6 were incredible. And then everything else was fine. From anywhere ranging from fine to good. So it's a show that I would say is good. It's not great. It just has 2 great moments. Well, 2 great episodes within the 10. There's an 11th episode that was released after the fact, which is not part of the original 10. It's like there's like a 16-minute short story that's animated, and then the rest of the episode, which is probably about 45 minutes, is live action, and it's an entirely different story. So, and both of those were fine as well. Like the animated one, I don't think we really needed that one. The live action one was fine, just like all the rest of them. But it's something that I would kind of implore you to at least give a chance, because it's so different. You never know. You might love it, you might hate it. You'll be like, why the fuck did I watch this? But you also might watch and be like, I don't know what the fuck this is. This is really different. I haven't seen anything like this. Let me see how this plays out. And if you make it episode 5 and 6, you'll be really fucking rewarded. I'll tell you that shit. Man, I am totally dropping the ball on this cigar here. What's next? Andor. Andor is the new Disney Plus Star Wars series that focuses on Cassian Andor, who is a character in Rogue One. So if you saw Star Wars, a Rogue One story, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, Star Wars, a Rogue One story. If you saw Rogue One, you're already familiar with Cassian Andor, and he's played by Diego Luna. And this is a prequel show that's supposed to lead into the events of the movie. And I found out it's going to be 2 seasons that are going to come out within close proximity of one another, 12 episodes each. So right now we are on episode 6 of this first season. So there's 6 more, and then there will be some sort of hiatus, and then there will be an additional 12, and that's going to be it. And I believe they have already started filming on the second 12. So it's not going to be a terribly long time before we get to watch those. And what I like about that is I like the idea of the show wanting to tell a self-contained story where we already know it's not going to go beyond that. Like, once you get to Rogue One, that's it. Like, because spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Rogue One, and if you, it's kind of a spoiler, but it's kind of not, because if you've seen the Star Wars movies, you already know. But everybody dies at the end of Rogue One. So that's why what's cool about this story is that I know once they get to Rogue One, I know everything that happens there all the way to the end. And that's it. So they have this 24-episode story arc that they want to tell. And I like the idea of coming in with a plan. Like, I don't like coming in with a show where it's like, here's your first season, and then it's like, oh, people love this, and then you get renewed for a second season. Now you have to go, all right, well, let me see, what am I gonna do here? I gotta make a second season of this show everybody loved, and that's how you end up with a second season of a show that's not as good, or a show that kind of like peters away over 3, 4, 5 seasons. I like the fact that they were just like, we got these 24 episodes, this story that we want to tell, and that's it. Watching the show, I'm not going to say it's going to be in my top 10 yet, but it is very strongly trending toward having a chance at making it to the top 10. It's that good. I'm not going to do, like, again, we're only 6 episodes in. So I'm not going to compare it to The Mandalorian or Boba Fett or any of the movies or anything. I'm not going to compare it to anything. But I'm going to say it's like if Star Wars met like Blade Runner. So like think of something that feels a little more grounded but still in space. Obviously, it's still Star Wars. But, well, not in space, but on other planets. It's an intergalactic story. It still involves the Empire, well, right now we're at the start of the creation of the rebellion, and it's just a really, like, it's like a grounded crime caper kind of thing. Like, it's hard to describe what it is, but like it feels like you're just watching think of like a normal kind of show that you would watch on television that has like a mystery that needs to be solved, a goal that it needs to be attained, a crime that needs to be solved or committed. But it takes place in a Star Wars universe. There's no Star Troopers, there's no lightsabers, there's no Jedi, at least not yet. There's none of those things yet. There's no Darth Vader. There's no like the things that you kind of come to associate with Star Wars are not present. And it's telling you a good story that just so happens to take place within a Star Wars universe. And that's why, I mean, you look at Rogue One, a Star Wars story. It's kind of the same deal. It's like it's telling you a story that takes place in the Star Wars universe. And the story it's telling it really well. It's got great actors involved. They're doing really good stuff with kind of like developing each of these characters, developing their motivations for wanting to attack the Empire. This season seems to be, and I think I even heard this somewhere, so it's confirmed, that it's kind of moving in like 3-episode miniature story arcs. And so far that is the case. The first 3 episodes focused on Cassian trying to get off of a planet, knowing that he was being chased as a potential, not knowing he was being chased necessarily, but as a potential suspect in a murder. And he doesn't know necessarily that anyone's coming for him. He just knows that he did a murder that he shouldn't have done, and he needs to get the fuck out of Dodge. That's the first 3 episodes, and the third one focuses on this escape. And it's an incredibly exciting and exhilarating action episode that's just really fucking thrilling. And then these next 3 episodes have focused, like, he gets off that planet, and now he's focusing on this attack on an imperial base, and they're going to try to steal like a quarter of payroll for an entire section of the Empire. And now it's focused on now that third episode. So I said, did I say we're on 6? I don't think I said. We're on 5. Now that 6th episode is going to be, again, presumably the action sequence of this actual caper taking place. 4 and 5 have been kind of like building up to that. And that structure has been really interesting, and it worked with Sandman, and it's working here to where it's like it feels like you're getting a fresh, interesting, and compelling story every few episodes, as opposed to if you have one story that plays out over the course of 12 episodes, you might feel like, oh, it's moving too slow because you're only going to get a little bit each week, and you're like, oh, when are we going to get here? And you get kind of antsy. But like now, with this way, it's like you get, by the time this 12-episode season is over, presumably, I would have gotten 4 really interesting stories back to back that will presumably have 4 really great action episodes and 8 really good setup episodes. And it's just been a joy to watch, man. You can tell these people give a fuck, man. Like they're writing these characters well. They're writing the motivations well. It looks beautiful. It looks amazing. Like I said, when they do the action episode in episode 3 was fuck, it was so good. One of my favorite episodes of this year, like with those along with 5 and 6 and Sandman, which I'm gonna have a portion of my best of 2022 video talking about individual episodes, so check for that. But yeah, Andor. Andor is one like Harley Quinn. Oh, I didn't make this. I don't think I ever made the connection between Harley Quinn and She-Hulk. I said that with Harley Quinn, it was something that every week I was coming into it kind of just like, all right, we watch Harley Quinn. And then I leave from it thoroughly fucking entertained. Like, I keep going into this not without the mindset of let me be excited for half an hour of entertainment. And I should have had that approach. Whereas with She-Hulk, I do come in with that approach. Like, I'm coming in like, I'm expecting half an hour of entertainment right now. So if this isn't that good, that's going to be disappointing. And I think the last episode was one that was kind of disappointing for me, that I didn't find that entertaining. And then with Andor, it's the same way. I'm coming in like, these episodes are more about 40, 45 minutes. But I'm coming in each week now with the full expectation of like, I'm about to get 40 to 45 minutes of television I'm going to fucking love. And I love that dynamic of getting to a point where when it's time for a new episode of a show, you're looking like, when is it going to be, whatever day that is, so I can be excited for a new episode of this show. And I know now, if, like I said, if it's going to continue the way it's been, I know episode 6 is going to be a fucking crazy great episode. And so now I'm super excited for next Wednesday. So yeah, high recommendation on Andor. I feel like even if you're not a Star Wars fan, you'd like Andor. Like, it's really good. It's not something where you need like a wealth of background knowledge. You don't need to have seen Rogue One. Like, it's just a good fucking like sci-fi thriller, I think would be the best way to put it. And then the last show that I want to talk about is Reservation Dogs. Reservation Dogs, season 1, I thought, this is fine. You know, there was so much praise heaped on season 1 of Reservation Dogs, and like, I didn't quite get it. And I feel like it's kind of a symptom of this age that we live in right now, where, you know, we only live on the extremes, right? You're either woke as fuck, or you like hate everything that the woke people like. And there's no ability to exist in the gray. So when you come up with something where, you know, right now this country has a problem with diversity. When you come up with something with a full Native American cast that takes place on a reservation, and you're doing this in a world where everything is super woke or the complete opposite of that, I think people feel obligated to be like, oh, that show is like the best thing I've ever seen. Because if you say, I don't really like that, people will be like, you fucking Native American hating piece of shit. Like, that's the world we live in. You either love the show or you hate the thing that made it. And I feel like some of that was in play in the praise that the show got for season 1, because it really was just it was fine. You know, it's a show about these 4 teenagers who live on this reservation. They want to go to, I think I talked about it in Mike's Musings 1, but they want to go to California on behalf of their friend that committed suicide. And that's season 1 in a nutshell. Season 2 went to an entirely different level. Like, it's not even really the same show. Like, season 1 I would call kind of like your standard kind of just grounded comedy, where it's like, hey, let's just follow these kids around, and then, you know, you will meet their funny cast of characters that surround them. They'll be funny at times, and you can see a little bit of what it's like to watch a comedy that takes place in a place that you're probably unfamiliar with people who have a culture that you're probably unfamiliar with. But season 2 took the cultural aspect, I think, and made it way more profound, way more interesting, way more impactful. I'm watching this like, this is so interesting to see these rituals and the way these people operate in these times of grief, or times of happiness, times of fright, times of worry. Like, the way these people live their day-to-day lives is way more interesting in season 2. And then season 2, what they do is they kind of deal with the way season 1 ended at the beginning, but then they give you like these individual episodes where it's like there's a new adventure almost each week, and they give each of the main kids their like own focus episode, where it's like, okay, this episode is about this character, and they're all so good, like really heartfelt, really well made, really artistic, very high-end television. What I might do, I'm not gonna do that. I would say I might edit out the downtime where I'm puffing the cigars, But I'm like, ain't nobody got time for that shit. But season 2 just takes it to a whole new level, man. Like, season 2 had some shocking moments, some tearful moments, some happy moments. It remains funny. It got funnier, I would argue. And it's just a beautiful fucking show, man. Like, I can't speak highly enough of this season. Like, spoiler alert for the very few people who are going to see this video, Reservation Dogs is probably going to land at number 3 on my best shows of 2022 list. I already have my top 10. It's just a matter of, with these 3 remaining months, is something going to push something else out? Or is something going to move, push something else down? The top 3 getting cracked is unlikely. But, Andor is probably going to end up in the top 10, which means something that's presently in there is going to have to get moved out. But the top 3 probably going to stay the same by the end of the year. Something coming out in these final 2.5 months that's going to be in the top 3 feels unlikely. But then again, every show in my top 3 I did not expect to be in my top 3 when I started watching it. Like I think when I did my video for 1883, I said, 1883 is probably my favorite show of the year so far, and it started in December 2021, but it aired more episodes in January 22 than it did in December 21, so I was fine with counting it as a 2022 show, and that's when I watched it. And after I watched it in my video for it, I'm pretty sure I said, like, this is like my number 1 show of the year, and it's probably not going to get topped. And I was pretty confident in that. And now 1883 is at like number 4, if that, it might even be lower, but it's at number 4 now, at least. That's the best. That's the highest it's at, is 4. And so it's not impossible that something could come along in October, November, December that can hit that top 3, but it's unlikely. I felt the only way the top 3 was going to get altered at this point was if Rings of Power or House of the Dragon cracked the top 3, and neither of them will. So high recommendation for Reservation Dogs. So I'm going to wrap this up by just giving a couple thoughts on the Emmys. There's a few things I wanted to discuss. Let's see. So, Outstanding Comedy was won by Ted Lasso. I don't feel any kind of way about that. I absolutely love Ted Lasso. The thing is, I didn't expect it to win because my general stance, and I feel like award shows generally do this as well, I don't think something should go back to back unless the second time the performance or the quality is markedly better than the first time, or the competition's not strong enough. I don't think either of those things were the case here. Ted Lasso season 2 was better than season 1. Well, that's debatable. I take that back. It might not be better than season 1. Either way, it's not markedly better than season 1. And then competition. It was up against Abbott Elementary, Barry, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Hacks, Ms. Maisel, Only Murders in the Building, and What We Do in the Shadows. It had fucking competition, man. Not being markedly better and having shows that were deserving of winning, I was surprised that Ted Lasso got it. I thought Only Murders in the Building was going to get it because Only Murders in the Building is surprisingly great to me. It's currently holding a top 10 spot as well. The likelihood of it staying, I think, is slim, just because it's a comedy, it's near the bottom, and is something new going to come out that's going to end up in the top 3? Probably not. But is something new going to come out that can hit the top 10? Maybe. Strong possibility. So, but Only Murders in the Building is great. It's a newer show that hasn't won before. It stars Hollywood darlings Steve Martin and Martin Short. Hollywood loves Selena Gomez, I think, too. Like, I felt it earned it. So I'm surprised Only Murders in the Building didn't win. Barry, also incredible. Abbott Elementary, it has the backing to win. It has the support. But I just feel like it's tough for a network sitcom to beat out something like Barry or something like Ted Lasso or something like Only Murders or Hacks. Like, those shows are like next level. Like, those are not just funny, but they're like, they do a lot with character and development and growth and relationships and things like that things that add to the overall greatness of the show. Whereas most of the time, the sitcom, is it funny? Yes or no? That's really all you need to worry about. Outstanding drama with Succession. If you watch this channel at all, you already know I'm pro Succession all day. So I had no problems with that. But it was up against Better Call Saul, which, of note, this is the first part of the final season of Better Call Saul that was nominated. It was split in 2 parts, a 7-episode first part and a 6-episode second part. The reason why I felt Better Call Saul, like award shows tend to reward something on its way out. So knowing that it was Better Call Saul's final season, I think most people will probably expect Better Call Saul to win. But I think what they're going to do is give Succession the win again this time, which it deserves. And they'll probably award Better Call Saul for the second half. So next year's Emmys that include the second 6 episodes of Better Call Saul, that I wouldn't be surprised if Better Call Saul cleans up at that Emmy show, period. Euphoria, which as you guys know is one of my top shows. Ozark, Severance, another one of my top shows. That's in my top 10. Squid Games, Stranger Things, which is in my honorable mentions. And Yellow Jackets, which was in my top 10 for 2021. So, great competition. Succession is undisputably better than all those shows to me. Indisputably better than all of those shows to me. Limited series, I already talked about. White Lotus won. In my opinion, of that group, Dopesick should have won. But none of those 5 should have been nominated. I'd say if it were me, I would have nominated Pachinko, We Own This City, Under the Banner of Heaven, 1883, and then probably Dopesick, and then probably White Lotus. So that would be 6 right there. That's the 6 that I would have put, and I would have given it to 1883 or probably Under the Banner of Heaven. So we had repeat wins for Jason Sudeikis, Gene Smart, and Zendaya, which again, same concept. Markedly better or no competition. None of them were markedly better. All of them were equally as great as they have always been. So they didn't get worse. They just weren't markedly better. And particularly for Zendaya, like, it's hard to be better. like Zendaya is like top level on fucking Euphoria, man. Michael Keaton winning for Dopesick, like I said, he deserved it. Amanda Seyfried winning for Dropout again. Like I said, I felt like her portrayal was a little bit cartoonish almost, but I'm not too mad about it. The guy from Squid Game winning lead actor in a drama was weird. I didn't expect that. Cheryl Lee Ralph winning for Abbott Elementary. I didn't expect it, but it was only because I thought the actress who plays the principal, Ava, was going to win in that category. I felt like Abbott Elementary wasn't going to win Best Comedy, but it was going to pick up a couple of wins somewhere else just to acknowledge its popularity. And Cheryl Lee Ralph got her win, and then Quinta got her win for, screenwriting, I believe, was it? So she got her win. Matthew McFadden winning for Best Supporting Actor in a Drama for Succession was great because that was my pick to start because I just thought what he did with the Tom character in season 3 was great. I loved it. So really great stuff there. So I'm at just over an hour. I think it's a time to wrap this up, but I'm going to give a quick summary real quick just to run down for you guys one more time what I talked about and what I thought. So Untold, like I said, documentary series. I talked about the episodes with Manti Te'o and Tim Donaghy. Like I said, these are sports stories. If you don't know about them and they sound interesting to you, check it out. 45 minutes, but not anything where it's like, you got to watch this. And if you already know the stories, it's just kind of like, all right, cool. You can relive it and get a little bit more detail. Harley Quinn, strong recommendation if you are into kind of like raunchy animated comedies, but not even like, it's smarter than a lot of raunchy animated comedies. And it doesn't seem like it would be, but it is. So very high recommendation on Harley Quinn. 3 seasons, HBO Max. Untold is on Netflix. Rick and Morty. If you're not a Rick and Morty fan, if you're not a Rick and Morty fan, don't watch it. But if you haven't seen it, I explained to you what it's like. It's crazy. I love it. Season 6 has been great so far. High recommendation there. Dopesick. Rick and Morty is not on any streamers. You have to have Adult Swim. app. You might have to have a Cartoon Network. You might have to have a cable subscription where you have Cartoon Network in order to even watch it then. But previous seasons, the first 5 seasons are on HBO Max. Dopesick, I already talked about that. That's on Hulu. High recommendation there. Dopesick will probably be in my honorable mentions for best shows of the year. Abbott Elementary, only 2 episodes so far this season, but it feels to me like this show is about to get even better. So high recommendation there as well. Sandman, solid across the board. 3 really good episodes, 2 of which were outstanding. Really different, really creative. Something that it's like watch it and see if it's for you. It's really tough to say because you never know how anyone's gonna like something like that. But I would have thought my wife would have hated it, and she liked it. So you never know. But I explained what it's like. So if that sounds interesting to you, check it out. She-Hulk has been shockingly entertaining, funny, good time every week. How much time do I have? It's 3:30. I have a little bit more time before I got to pick up my kids. I'm going to watch the new episode before that. High recommendation on She-Hulk. Andor, high recommendation there as well. That is likely going to end up in my top 10 if it continues at the rate that it's going for these next 7 episodes. If the next 7 episodes continue on the path that the first 5 have set, it's probably going to end up in my top 10. So high recommendation on Andor, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, and even if you didn't like Rogue One, I think you'd like this show. That's how strong of a proponent I am of Andor. And then lastly, Reservation Dogs. I cannot speak highly enough about this show. It's currently sitting at number 3 on my top 10 list of 2022. It's probably going to stay there. I don't see anything pushing it down. It was an incredible experience. I loved coming in here into this garage, turning off all the lights, having nothing but the light from the TV, getting high, and watching Reservation Dogs. It was the shit. I'm telling you. Reservation Dogs, high recommendation. So that is it for the second episode of Mike's Musings. I hope the one person, Delvin, that is subscribed at the tier that allows him to watch Mike's Musings, I hope you watched this and enjoyed it. If you're somebody who picked up on the promo for it and you joined in the $10 tier and now you're watching it and it's some point in the future and you're watching it, I hope you enjoyed. Hit me up if you have any questions. You can put questions in the comments. You can put questions in the video. And I'm going to sit on Mike's Musings for another month or so, let it pile up with more shows that I've watched, and I will see you guys probably at some point in November with a 3rd episode, and also probably at some point this month will be my next retro reviews covering Dark City. So that's all I got, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.